Gardening for Life to you tonight. You know, because I can talk about science all day long, or all the stuff that will probably bore you into your dessert. But when you talk about relationships, think about who it was that first took you out and taught you how to explore your surroundings. Just think about it for a minute. I mean, I can still remember having the opportunity to go out and look in the ground and ask questions and not be immediately told an answer. Because when kids are out in the yard and you're always telling facts at them, right? And y'all work with kids now, so I know you experience this, and you probably have a lot of little ones around you. It's easy to say, oh, this is this, and this is this, and this is this, and let's repeat it. I want to make sure you have your language skills. But what would happen if you said, what do you think it is? How are we going to find out what it is? How about touch it? How about taste it? How about experience it? How about sit here, let's just watch. That's how fascination starts. And my father was the one who taught me how to do that. That's me, many years later, and this is what I do. You know, yes, I went to school for chemical engineering. Yes, I went to school and got my double master's, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But this is how I learn. Every single morning, I get up, I grab my coffee, feed the chickens, go out into my yard, and observe. Every single morning. And I don't have to do it long in order for something to teach me something. Now, I'm not going out there to check on things that I already know. I'm going out there to be surprised by something that I could never even fathom would be available to me. Just tonight, before I came on here to talk to you, I walked outside. And I just stood there. And I opened myself to the atmosphere. And the cedar waxwings are in your magnolia. The robins are bantering back and forth, fighting for purchase. That's a lesson. That's a fascination. So how do you do this? How do you get to curiosity? How do you cultivate fascination? How do you nurture wonder? Because isn't that the key? Isn't that what makes life worth living? When you can walk outside and not automatically know everything? Who wants to know everything? That's too much trouble. So how do you learn how to watch? This is something my father taught me. My father was a quiet man. Very, very quiet man. My mother didn't let him get a word in edgewise, so it was pretty easy, you know. He just kind of stayed quiet. And he grew up on a farm outside of Philadelphia in Chester, Pennsylvania. He had 2.5 acres farm. Now, it wasn't a farm to raise money to make a living. I think his father was a garbage man. He was this very simple family. And their 2.5 acre farm fed them. It did everything for them because those were simpler times. He was born in 24. And in 1941, when Pearl Harbor struck, at 17, he went to war. And he got trapped behind enemy lines in France and then Belgium. He was a paratrooper. Maybe that's when he got quiet. Because his life changed significantly as a result of that. When my father passed away in 2001, we found this little picture in his wallet of this little girl in France. And of course, you know what we were thinking. Oh, we have another sister, right? Not Not true. Not true. And so we asked him, I'm like, Mom, what is this? You know, now my father was a Purple Heart recipient. You know, he was Silver Star. He had all these medals. Never talked about the war. Ever, never, never. You don't talk about the war. You live a good life, and you do the best you can with what you've got. And that's how you're supposed to be. Okay. So we asked my father, why is this little girl's picture in his wallet? She said, at the darkest days of World War II, your father had gone into Paris, and he saw this little girl, and she was sitting in the middle of the street, just playing. Everything around her was demolished, and everything inside of her was still vibrant, was still fully alive, was still fully awake, was still fully inspired. She was clueless. And he said, I knew that very moment that that's why I'm fighting this war, to create a world where that is possible for every child. And I want to remain that way myself for the rest of my life. And so what greater gift could he have given his 5 children than learning how to cultivate the awareness of presence and the gratitude for life itself. So when I talk about Garden for Life, I'm not just talking about I want to garden my whole life long. I want to connect. I want to connect to that fascinating opportunity that God gives us every day, that lets me go out and watch something and partner with something bigger than myself in a way that enriches us both. I can't do that if I'm busy controlling it. I can't do that if I'm busy spending 99% of my time manipulating it to what I want. I must be a partner with nature and with the process of all life, whether I like it or not. Because then I'm taught. Then I'm teachable. So when you learn how to watch in your garden, you start to notice the cycles. You start to notice why the blue jay is sitting on the fence with that branch. Why that branch? Why not the stuff that's over here in the leaf litter? And then you learn that blue jays require certain branches. So if I'm raking them all up, what's that going to do for the blue jay? Right? So if I'm going to co-create a happy life for myself and this blue jay, what do I have to change in my habits, in my gardening? How to learn. Now this is my pond. I have a 5,000-gallon pond in my yard. I only have 1/3 of an acre, so it's not a very big property. And I live in regular suburbia, you know, all the houses right on the little street. And in my pond, I probably have about somewhere between 500 to 1,000 species, numbers of frogs, toads, newts, etc., etc. And every spring, I see this in my pond. Every spring. Now, most of you know this is a mosquito minnow, okay? It could be a baby koi, but it's probably a mosquito minnow. But that long chain are toad eggs, not frog eggs. How do I know that? Because I learned how to ask, okay? And I learned how to observe frogs early in the morning and identify the difference between their calls and the string of their eggs versus the cluster of toads. So when you learn how to just pay attention, a whole new world opens up to you. And this is the gift that we give ourselves if we can embrace the opportunity of getting out of the way. Just getting out of the way and asking these important questions. How to explore. Now, I'm going to tell you, the easiest way that I explore is with that phone. You know, and we all have one, so there's no excuse that you can't explore too. Because for about 3 years, what I did was I did a meditative experiment where every morning I would go out and do my morning meditation in the garden. I would do my prayers, and then I would open myself up to whatever it was, and I would sit in one space, and I would choose a different space every day, and I would choose a different orientation in space. Maybe now I'm over here and I'm looking up. You know, maybe I'd climb the steps and look down, and I would just sit. Now for you, that might be a coffee moment. That might be a sip and stroll in the evening with a glass of wine. Doesn't matter. It's an opportunity for you to connect. So for me, I would take pictures. And macro photography is an amazing exploration if you've never done it. I see some heads nodding. So this is scarlet hibiscus, Texas star, growing in a pond. Grows much better in my pond than it does in my pollinator bed, and it pollinates better. And what I have learned now is that in order for it to truly get pollinated, it needs a bumblebee, because it needs buzz pollination. Buzz pollination is when the bee goes in and it shakes the pollen loose. Guess what? You can't have eggplant without it. You can't have tomatoes or zucchini without it. You can't have that squash soup without it. So if I want to make sure that I've got this, and I want to make sure that I'm connected and responsible, I'm gardening for life, I'm going to be gardening for bumblebees too. Because I want them to be there. I don't just want that squash soup. You know, I want the things that they want. I want us to co-create together. So I've already talked about sitting. And this is beach primrose. I don't know if you've ever had one of these roadside moments. Have you? When you're just driving and then all of a sudden you just come upon this, oh my goodness, what is that? I've got to steal it and put it in my yard. Right? Yes. We all have them. We all have it. We call it roadsidea. And let me tell you, even though I'm a Quaker and I can't lie, I have created new jobs with certain horticulture studies when I'm traipsing over somebody's field and I'm like, oh yes, I'm with the Garden Club of South Carolina. I'm going to be doing a program on blah, blah, blah. And I'm so fascinated. Would you mind if I took a scientific sample? Throw that word in, scientific sample. Works every time. And these grow in the winter. And then who can't get lost here? Who cannot get lost in those gorgeous, delicate baby pink of the lotus flower? The most supreme flower on the planet, in my opinion. And it grows 6 or 7 feet tall. And the flower is about this big. And if you've ever been up and close, it smells divine. And it is covered in pollinators, particularly mason bees, and guess what? Carpenter bees. Those bees that everybody hates, right? They got to have a place to live too. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay. Every now and then, I get a special gift. And every April, I know that gift is coming. And for me, it's this bird. This is the Louisiana water thrush. Now, it's a very, very shy bird. And I only see it for about a week or two every year. And this bird, it's okay looking. It's pretty, you know. It's not a purple martin. It's not a, well, it's pretty, right? But it's got a cool dance. It walks around the pond and it does this with his head, with his butt. It just does this all the way around the pond. So it is just like this all the way around the pond for like a week and a half, and I am just in heaven. How could you not be in heaven, right? Because you know how the wren is such a notable bird, right? You never miss it, right? Well, this one is so shy. It lives in the leaf litter. It only hunts in the water, in shallow waterfalls. That's the only time you'll see it. If you're lucky, you'll catch it trying to catch the snails. But the dance is so loud that it's a lesson, right? It's a lesson. Like, I am so happy to be alive that I'm going to dance. Well, I'm dancing out there with it. I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it. This is fun. It's April. It is happy April. So, let's back up and talk about what's different. What's the difference between a Garden for Life garden and your traditional, out-of-the-box garden store garden? Okay, the ABCs of garden, the ABCs of master gardening. And I am not against master gardeners. Great science, great data, great resources. But it's not just about taking a soil sample. It's not. It's not understanding what the NPK ratio is. There's a quiz afterwards. It's about creating harmony, not just produce, not just beauty. You know, so funny when I ask people, what do you garden? I asked several of you that tonight, and you're like, I don't have the right answer. Okay, well, my simple answer is I garden for life. I garden for everything. I garden for myself, I garden for you, I garden for the plants, I garden for the butterflies, I garden for the raccoons and the opossums and my chickens and the fish and da-da-da-da-da.